Chapter 1. A Reflection. Absent, Hercule Poirot stepped from the hansom cab into the damp chill of Muirfield Manor's courtyard, his keen grey eyes taking in every detail. The slick cobblestones reflecting the muted glow of gas lamps, the ornate, wrought-iron gates whispering on their hinges, and behind him the bustling of grooms stowing away the carriage. He smoothed his immaculate chestnut moustache, noting the precise line of the stonework and the symmetry of the facade. Something about the house, its silent grandeur, its calculated austerity, struck him at once as significant. He would later, no doubt, find that every mortar joint had a purpose, every lintel a secret. Inside the great hall, Lady Beatrice Ashford awaited him beneath a lofty vaulted ceiling interlaced with carved oak beams. She was dressed in mourning black lace, her dark hair coiled into a severe knot, and her expression was wreathed in perplexity. Poirot bowed with the utmost courtesy, inclining his head. "Madame, I trust the journey from London was without incident?" he inquired, his voice neatly polite. "Quite so, Monsieur Poirot," she replied, though her pale lips trembled slightly. "It is my mirror that has given me more concern than the roads. Perhaps only you can explain it." She turned a full circle, gesturing toward an alcove where stood the mirror in question. "You see, but you do not see yourself." Poirot's slender fingers steepled beneath his chin as he studied the tall, gilded frame set against a burgundy silk wall covering. It was an imposing object. Carved cherubs at each corner, curling acanthus leaves along the edges, and frosted glass panels that diffused the lamplight into a soft glow. He approached, his gaze flicking between the mirror's surface and his own feet. Then he raised his gaze and saw only the room behind him, reflected perfectly, except for one glaring omission, no reflection of himself. "Remarkable," he murmured, tilting his head to the side. He brought his hand up slowly before his face. The image of the polished wood wainscot and tufted velvet settee moved in the glass, but his hand appeared nowhere. "Madame, have you ever experienced anything like this in your life?" he asked, eyes still fixed on the surface. Lady Ashford swallowed. "Never. It began 3 nights ago, ever since the untimely death of my sister Rosalind. I thought myself grief-stricken, perhaps imagining things, until I asked the butler to look. He too saw nothing but the room. I beseech you, Monsieur Poirot, is it witchcraft, a trick of the light or something more sinister?" Poirot raised one meticulously arched eyebrow. "We shall see. But first, madame, I should acquaint myself with the facts. Your sister's passing, was it peaceful?" "Tragic," Lady Ashford answered, her voice catching. "Rosalind was found dead in her bedchamber, a single red rose placed upon her pillow. There was no sign of struggle, no poison in her system. According to the coroner, natural causes. Yet I cannot help feeling that something was taken from her, and now her mirror denies me my own reflection." A faint smile curved at Poirot's lips. "Mon Dieu, madame, in my experience, events are rarely what they appear. This mirror, like your sister's death, may conceal a truth beneath its surface. I must inquire further. Who had access to Lady Rosalind's apartments? And what of this? Mirror's provenance? Antique dealers? Family law?" Lady Ashford led Poirot across the hall into a long gallery hung with ancestral portraits. "The mirror was part of our inheritance, passed down through generations of Ashfords. They say it travelled here from Constantinople, owned by a seneschal of the Ottoman court. But I never believed in curses." "How fascinating," Poirot murmured, eyes darting to a full-length portrait of a stern-faced ancestor in a silken turban. "In my little grey cells, madame, even curses are but illusions waiting for reason to dispel them." He paused before a window framed by heavy draught-stopping velvet. His reflection shimmered in the glass, and for an instant he allowed himself a private satisfaction at the puzzle's promise. Then, turning back to Lady Ashford, he adopted the air of utmost seriousness. "Let us begin tomorrow with the butler and the household staff. Tonight I shall examine that curious glass again by lamplight. Pray that sleep finds you, though I suspect that when one's own image vanishes, nightmares may follow." Lady Ashford offered a wan smile. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. I sleep more soundly for knowing you are here." As she swept away, Poirot lingered, staring once more into the mirror's deceptive depths. The game, he knew, had begun. Chapter 2. Secrets Behind the Glass. The dawnlight crept through the latticed windows of Mirfield Manor, illuminating motes of dust that danced like tiny wraiths in the cavernous breakfast-room. Hercule Poirot sat at the long mahogany table, his posture impeccable, his grey eyes attentive beneath neatly arched brows. Across from him, the butler, Mr. Algernon Craven, arranged fine bone china with deliberate precision. The silver tea service gleamed, but Poirot's gaze was fixed upon Craven's measured movements. "Monsieur," began Craven in a clipped British accent, "Lady Ashford requested that I assist you in any way necessary. I trust that I may be of service." His voice betrayed no tremor, but Poirot's little grey cells detected a flicker of unease in the servant's stance. "Merci, Monsieur Craven," Poirot replied. "Let us speak frankly. Your mistress describes a mirror that refuses to show her own reflection. Have you observed this phenomenon yourself?" Craven paused, spoon hovering above a sugar bowl. "Indeed, monsieur. I fetched Lady Ashford here at 6 last evening, and she bade me look. I, too, saw only the hall behind me. No figures, no living forms." Poirot nodded gravely. "And before Lady Rosalind's death, had the mirror ever displayed such odd behaviour?" "No, sir." Craven's hand quivered as he replaced the spoon. "It was always a splendid curiosity, one of the manor's heirlooms, but not like this." Poirot allowed a moment's silence, then continued. "Your sister, Lady Rosalind, died 3 nights ago. Between that event and yesterday evening, were there any changes to the room where the mirror rests? Any cleaning, redecorating, or new furnishings?" Craven frowned, deep in thought. "Only routine dusting by Miss Cartwright, the housekeeper's daughter, and the florals, 5 bouquets delivered for Lady Rosalind's funeral. They were placed about the house, but not in the gallery itself." "Who has keys to the gallery?" Poirot asked, fingertips steepled. "Only Lady Ashford, myself, Miss Cartwright, and Mr. Dawkins, the gardener. No one else is trusted with the family portraits." "Very good. I shall wish to speak with Miss family portraits." "Very good. I shall wish to speak with Miss Cartwright and Mr. Dawkins later today. But first, Monsieur Craven, would you accompany me to the gallery?" Craven inclined his head and led Poirot down a carpeted corridor. The clack of their shoes on the runner echoed beneath the high ceiling. At the gallery's threshold, Poirot glanced up at the mirror's gilded frame, its baroque curves casting ornate shadows on the wall. "Notice anything odd about the frame?" he asked. Craven's eyes traced the curling acanthus leaves. "Appears intact, monsieur. A fine piece of craftsmanship. I have never inspected it closely." Poirot crouched, inspecting the lower edge. He brushed a fingertip along a barely perceptible groove at the base. "Ah, this seam, monsieur. It suggests the frame may have been removed from its backing. A skilled hand could have pried it apart." Craven's eyes widened. "You think someone tampered with the mirror?" "Perhaps." Poirot stood, smoothing his waistcoat. "If one were so inclined, one could replace the glass with a cleverly painted panel or two-way mirror, deflecting only certain angles. But the absence of Lady Ashford's reflection, and yours, implies more than mere prankery. There is method here." He drew from his inner pocket a small leather notebook and scribbled a few lines. "I must examine the mirror at closer quarters tonight by lamplight. Meanwhile, Monsieur Craven, please secure the gallery. No one enters without my express permission, and alert Miss Cartwright and Mr. Dawkins that I shall wish to speak with them this afternoon, in private." Craven hesitated. "If I may, monsieur, what is your theory?" Poirot gave a faint smile. "At present, I have only observations, but I sense that Lady Rosalind's death and this curious mirror are threads of the same tapestry. A tapestry woven by a mind both brilliant and ruthless." Leaving Craven to his duties, Poirot made his way to the nursery wing, where Miss Cartwright oversaw the children of a neighbouring viscount who was staying at the manor. The housekeeper's daughter was a sturdy young woman with resolute eyes. Poirot found her adjusting curtains in a room pastel-hued and furnished with ivory cribs. "Madam," he said, flashing his silver monogrammed calling card, "I am Hercule Poirot, invited by Lady Ashford. Might I ask you a few questions regarding the gallery mirror?" Miss Cartwright set down the curtain rod. "Of course, monsieur. It has upset all of us. I came to dust the frames on the Monday after Lady Rosalind's funeral 2 days ago, and when I looked up, I saw myself in every portrait, but not in the mirror. I thought at first it was the early morning gloom." "And did you return later?" Poirot asked. "Yes," she replied, cheeks colouring. "At 4 in the afternoon I came back after lunch. Same result, no reflection. I left, quite shaken, and hurried to fetch the butler." Poirot jotted another note. "And the day before the funeral, when Lady Rosalind still lived, did you ever notice anything unusual?" Miss Cartwright shook her head. "Never. The mirror always pleased her. She admired it every time she passed." "Thank you, mademoiselle. One final question. Did any conversation occur around that mirror? Any remarks about its origin or warnings not to touch?" Her brow furrowed. "I recall Lady Ashford talking to her sister about it. She mentioned a legend that a betrayer's reflection would vanish, though she said it was nonsense. No one believed it." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Legends, mademoiselle, are the footprints of truth, disguised in myth. I shall return later for more. Until then, keep the children clear of that gallery, and let no one disturb the surface of the glass." With that, he bowed and departed. In his mind, pieces of a puzzle clicked into place, tampering around the frame, whispered family legends, accessed by only a few individuals. The enigma deepened, and Poirot, ever confident, felt exhilarated by the challenge. The game was indeed afoot. Chapter 3. Footsteps in the dark. Hercule Poirot waited until the household had retired before making his way to the gallery once more. The oil lamp he carried cast long, wavering shadows along the corridor's patterned carpet as he approached the door. He paused, placing a gloved hand upon the cool brass handle, and listened. Beyond the door, the hush of night reigned. Only the distant ticking of a grandfather clock accompanied his thoughts. Inside the gallery, the lamp's glow revealed the great mirror in all its ornate splendor. Poirot set the lamp upon a small pedestal table to one side, its light dancing across the gilded frame. Then, adjusting his cravat, he drew close. He examined the glass surface with methodical precision, noting minute imperfections. A barely perceptible haze around the edges, and a faint network of hairline scratches that caught the light only at certain angles. He circled the mirror, probing the seam he had discovered earlier. Its subtle irregularity suggested recent tampering, yet there was no splintered wood or evidence of jimmying. Instead, the frame seemed to have been removed cleanly, then replaced. Poirot murmured to himself, "Someone with skill and purpose." Small floorboard creaked behind him. Poirot stiffened but did not turn immediately. He allowed the footsteps' echo to fade, then pivoted. Mr. Dawkins, the gardener, stepped into the pool of lamplight, his lanky frame clad in a threadbare linen jacket and trousers lightly dusted with soil. "Monsieur Poirot," Dawkins whispered, voice rough as twigs, "I thought you said no one must disturb the gallery." "Indeed I did," Poirot replied, inclining his head. "Yet you have a reason to be here at this hour." Dawkins swallowed, wiping his rough hand on his jacket. "Lady Ashford and her sister loved flowers. After the funeral, I brought some cuttings inside, roses and lilies, to replace those fading wreaths. I noticed the mirror's glass seemed dull when I first entered. Thought I might clean it." "Why at night?" Poirot asked, raising an eyebrow. "Surely you could have come earlier." The gardener's shoulders slumped. I feared drawing attention. People are uneasy, whispers that the house is cursed. I only wanted to help." The glass felt sticky, like someone had touched it with oily hands. "I thought perhaps some varnish needed buffing." Poirot nodded once, silently. "And did your cleaning restore your reflection?" Dawkins shook his head, stepping back. "No, monsieur. If anything, the glass resisted my cloth, as if rejecting contact." An idea struck Poirot. "You have tools in the greenhouse, metal implements for pruning? Did you bring any instrument with you?" Dawkins hesitated, then reached into his jacket pocket. He withdrew a slender brass key, its teeth worn smooth. This was on the floor beside the frame. "I thought it odd. Our house keys aren't made like this." Poirot took the key, turning it between his fingertips. Madame's key, turning it between his fingertips. "Madame's gallery is locked from the outside, yes? Only those with her master key may enter." Dawkins's face paled. I found this after I disturbed the floorboard while placing the rose stems. I didn't tell anyone. I thought it might be Lady Ashford's. I should have handed it over at once." Poirot studied the key's unique wards. "This belongs to neither Craven nor Cartwright. Someone entered the gallery only recently and concealed this key. Very good, Monsieur Dawkins. Return to your quarters at once, and say nothing of your nocturnal visit." Once the gardener departed, Poirot returned his attention to the mirror. Sliding a finger along the inner edge of the frame, he discovered a tiny catch, barely visible, set into the decorative molding. With careful pressure, the catch clicked, and a section of the frame swung open like a secret door, revealing a narrow compartment behind. Inside lay a thin sheet of polished metal, cut precisely to the mirror's dimensions. He lifted it with gloved hands. The surface gleamed like silver, but warped, an intentionally convex plate designed to reflect light oddly. Poirot pressed it to his cheek. "Two-way glass," he mused. From one side, the chamber behind would appear normal. From the other, the viewer might see only the room beyond, while the plate absorbed or diverted light from anything close. Ingenious. He replaced the plate, closed the secret panel, and locked it with the mysterious brass key. Poirot's mind raced. Who had the skill to fabricate such a device, and why? The metal sheet explained the missing reflections, yet it begged questions about motive. Had Lady Rosalind glimpsed the trick and confronted someone? Had that act led to her death? He sat in the dim glow, pondering. Outside the gallery window, the moon rode low. Its silver light filtered through skeletal branches. Poirot pictured Lady Ashford passing before the mirror, expecting her image, only to be confronted by emptiness. The shock, the betrayal. How deeply would it cut? As the lamp guttered, Poirot rose and snuffed the flame, plunging the room into darkness. He pocketed the key and slipped quietly away, determined to question Lady Ashford at dawn about fabricators or collectors in the family. With an interest in optical devices, tomorrow the household would reveal its secrets, if only he could coax them forth. And somewhere in the silent corridors of Mirfield Manor, the true architect of this enigma watched, secure in the knowledge that the puzzle he had set would claim more than mere reflections. Chapter 4. Whispers in the bedchamber morning mist curled around the turrets of Mirfield Manor. As Hercule Poirot descended the sweeping staircase toward Lady Ashford's drawing-room, in his gloved hand he carried the brass key recovered from the gallery, and a small leather pouch containing the metal plate he had removed from the mirror. His mind replayed each discovery, the missing reflections, the secret catch, the ingenious optical device, and now he sought to unmask the architect behind it all. Lady Ashford sat near the window, pale fingers clasped about a teacup of untouched chamomile tea. Her dark eyes were rimmed with fatigue, and a single tear had left a damp track upon her cheek. Poirot offered her his softest bow. "Madame, may I?" he asked, settling into the chair opposite her. "Of course, Monsieur Poirot," she replied, voice hushed. He placed the brass key and the folded metal plate upon a small occasional table. "I have examined this device. Pray tell me, did either you or your sister possess any interest in optical novelties, camera obscuras, two-way mirrors, or the like?" Lady Ashford's brow furrowed. "No. Rosalind was fond of reading legends and folklore, but never of mechanical contrivances, and I have no knowledge of such things. Poirot inclined his head. "The plate fits behind the mirror, diverting its reflection. Who in your household might have the skill or the motive to acquire and install such a device?" She shook her head, despair edging her tone. "Our staff are devoted and honest. Only you would suspect foul play." "Sometimes, madame, honesty bears the guise of innocence." He reached for his notebook. "Let us consider opportunity. Yesterday I spoke with the butler, the housekeeper's daughter, and the gardener. You tell me that only those four have access to the gallery." "Yes, yet this key," he tapped the brass key, "is clearly not theirs. It must belong to the individual who installed the plate. Do you know of anyone outside the household who had reason to examine your inheritance?" She glanced toward the portrait-lined walls. "My cousin Roland Ashford visited last week. He's an antiquarian based in Bath, with a particular interest in Ottoman artifacts. He admired the mirror's frame and asked if he might borrow it for study." Poirot brightened. "And did you consent?" "Reluctantly, I declined. The mirror is irreplaceable." But he was displeased. "It seems our suspect is not confined to this house." Poirot rose and moved to the mantel, where a delicate clock ticked serenely. "Madame, I believe your cousin engineered this plot. By tampering with the mirror, he sought leverage, perhaps to force your hand in lending the piece to him." Lady D. Ashford's lips pressed thin. "Roland wanted to use the frame for a catalogue he is preparing. He insisted he could replicate the glass later, so the mirror itself need not be displaced. So he fabricated a replacement plate, installed it under cover of darkness, then hoped you would notice the anomaly and consult an expert." Poirot's eyes glimmered. "His motive? To persuade you to gift him the mirror outright, if only to end what he would portray as a haunting." Silence settled between them until Lady Ashford whispered, "But why kill Rosalind? What possible gain could he find in that tragedy?" Poirot paused, folding his hands. "His ambition, madam, perhaps exceeded decorum. Your sister discovered discrepancies. The scratches around the catch, the slight space behind the frame. She may have confronted Roland or mentioned suspicions to you. To protect his scheme, he removed the obstacle." He strode to the portrait of the Ottoman ancestor and studied the figure's stern gaze. "I must speak with your cousin. He is currently staying in the village inn, is he not?" "Yes, at the Red Griffin." "Very well. I shall take my leave and pay him a visit. You, madame, should remain here and avoid mention of our discoveries to any other soul." Lady Ashford inclined her head, gratitude and grief mingling in her eyes. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot." By mid-morning, Poirot alighted from the hansom at the village green. The Red Griffin stood before him, a timber-framed inn with a low-hanging sign carved into the likeness of a griffin. He entered the taproom, where a fire crackled and patrons murmured over ale. At a corner table sat a tall, gaunt man with hawk-like features, Roland Ashford. He raised a single eyebrow as Poirot approached. "Monsieur," Roland greeted with forced politeness, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" "You have an astonishing talent for optics, Monsieur Ashford," Poirot replied, taking the seat across from him, "and an equal talent for manipulation." He placed the brass key and metal plate between them, Care to explain these?" Roland's face paled. He reached out, then withdrew his hand, a tremor in his fingers. "Those are mine, yes, but you must understand, the mirror is essential to my research. I meant no harm." "And yet you showed great harm indeed, for their removal implicates you in Lady Rosalind's demise." Roland's voice dropped. "She threatened to expose me, said she would tell Beatrice. I begged her not to. I did not mean—" His words faltered. "Yet you did, monsieur. You silenced her." Poirot rose. "I shall see you in London's Bow Street tomorrow. Until then, reflect upon your actions." With a final glance at the crestfallen cousin, Poirot strode from the inn, his little grey cells satisfied that the enigma had been unravelled at last. However, in the depths of that deceptively tranquil afternoon, he remained wary. Cousins, like mirrors, can harbour hidden reflections until shattered by truth. Chapter 5. Shadows of Betrayal. A chill wind rattled the gallery windows as Hercule Poirot returned to Mirfield Manor that evening. He paused on the threshold, inhaling the musty scent of aged wood and fading blooms. The corridor beyond was dark, save for a solitary sconce near the gallery door, its flame guttering as though hesitant to reveal the night's secrets. Poirot produced his brass key and slipped silently inside. The mirror stood as before, its frame gleaming faintly in the lamplight. Tonight, however, the device he had removed lay safe in his pocket, replaced now by the convex plate. He set his lantern on the pedestal table and approached the frame, intent on confirming that no further tampering had occurred. His slender fingers traced the seams. All remained undisturbed. Satisfied, he moved to the far end of the gallery to observe the mirror from a distance. But before he could position himself, a soft scuff behind him made him whirl, yet found only empty air. Poirot frowned, then straightened. "I am not alone," he murmured. "Someone watches from the shadows." He advanced with measured steps, the light glancing off the portraits until he stood before the closed door to Lady Rosalind's bedchamber. The door was ajar. Within, the lamplight revealed a scene at odds with the disciplined order of the manor. A low chaise longue overturned, cushions strewn across the carpet, and upon the dressing-table Lady Rosalind's silver hairbrush lay broken, bristles splayed like a wounded bird. Poirot's heart tightened. Though she had passed days earlier, someone had returned to her room, searching. He stepped inside, brushing a fingertip across the overturned cushions. A strange metallic scent lingered, oil mixed with something acrid. Poirot glanced at the dressing-table mirror, its surface cracked at one corner. He knelt and examined the fracture. The hairline spiderweb of damage had not been there the last time he saw this chamber. Someone had banged into it. Whether accidentally or in fury remained to be discovered. Drawing a slender handkerchief from his jacket, Poirot lifted a delicate gold chain from among the scattered items. A locket bearing Lady Ashford's crest. He opened it. Inside, a miniature portrait of Rosalind smiled serenely. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The locket belonged to Beatrice. For it to lie here implied either an intent to frame her, or to retrieve something hidden within. Footsteps approached in the corridor. Poirot quietly exited the bedroom, slipping into the gallery where he resumed his post before the heirloom mirror. The door opened, and Miss Cartwright entered, lantern in hand. Her face was strained, and her cheeks glistened with tears. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, I heard sounds from Lady Rosalind's chamber. I thought perhaps someone had returned to grieve." Poirot tilted his head. "But the chamber was disturbed. Tell me, mademoiselle, have you ever in your duties handled this locket?" Miss Cartwright swallowed. "No, sir. I have dusted the dressing-table several times, but the locket always hung from Lady Ashford's neck. I never touched it." "Yet it found its way here," Poirot observed. "Someone took it from Lady Beatrice, then brought it into Rosalind's room. A message, perhaps, or a diversion." She glanced at the mirror. "Do you think it's Roland? Monsieur Ashford spoke often of uncovering family secrets. Roland's motives were simpler, acquisition. But this suggests a deeper betrayal." Poirot raised his lantern to the mirror's surface. "Observe, mademoiselle, what the glass reveals." He held the light at an angle. The convex plate within cast ghostly reflections, a second fainter image behind the viewer. As Miss Cartwright peered, her eyes widened. Behind them, a shadow moved. A presence crouched just beyond the lamp's reach. Miss Cartwright gasped and stumbled backward. Poirot steadied her with a gentle hand. "Do not fear. You have seen what I have suspected. A hidden observer, using the mirror's compartment to conceal tools or keys. A spy in our midst." Her lips trembled. Who could it be? The butler, Mr. Dawkins. "Let us think," Poirot said softly. "Mr. Craven is meticulous to the point of rigidity. The gardener shows remorse. But someone else accessed Rosalind's room, someone in whom Lady Ashford trusted implicitly." He handed her the locket. "Take this to Lady Ashford, and ask her if the chain ever felt loose. While you distract her, I shall search the corridor for our shadow." Miss Cartwright fled, as Poirot called out, "But do not alarm the household, only the lady." Her footsteps faded, and Poirot extinguished, the lantern plunging the gallery into darkness. He pressed the secret catch on the mirror frame, swung open the panel, and removed the convex plate once more. In the panel's hollow, etched faintly on the wood, were initials E.C. Poirot's heart skipped. He replaced the plate swiftly and relit the lantern. In the flickering glow he whispered, "Edith Cartwright! Impossible!" Yet the handwriting matched. The housekeeper's daughter, the loyal soul he had trusted. Betrayal cut deeper than any blade. Clutching the plate, Poirot left the gallery, the blade of truth in his mind sharper than ever. The next dawn would bring revelations that none at Mirfield Manor could have imagined. Chapter 6. The Housekeeper's Secret. Hercule Poirot spent the remainder of the night poring over every detail he had amassed. By dawn's pale light he had composed a plan. Confront Miss Cartwright with the evidence, then observe her reactions. Before the household awoke, he returned to the gallery, where the convex plate concealed behind the mirror now lay spread upon the small pedestal table. He studied the initials E.C. etched into its wood backing. Edith Cartwright, the housekeeper's daughter, was implicated most disturbingly. He replaced the plate carefully and extinguished the lamp. Stepping into the corridor, he paused at the nursery door, where he knew Cartwright kept some of her cleaning supplies and personal effects. He rapped gently and entered. The room was neat, even now, with pastel walls and orderly cribs. Against one corner stood a narrow wardrobe, and beside it a plain wooden crate. Cartwright looked up from where she knelt, arranging dolls in a wicker basket. Her face was pale, but her eyes hardened when Poirot addressed her. "Mademoiselle Cartwright, I trust you slept well?" She forced a small smile. "As well as one can hear, Monsieur Poirot. I heard you had much to do last night." Poirot set his gaze evenly upon her. "Indeed, and I found this behind the mirror in the gallery." He reached into his coat and produced the etched plate. "These initials, E.C., are yours, no?" Cartwright's breath caught. She nodded, as though in a trance. "Yes, they're mine. I carved them when I first worked in the galleries, years ago." Her voice cracked. "But I never meant harm. Pray, tell me how you came to hide this device." Poirot folded his hands calmly. "And why you spied upon Lady Ashford and her sister through that compartment." She lowered her head, her fingers twisting the hem of her apron. I loved Lady Rosalind." Her words tumbled out in a rush. "She was kind to me when I first came here. She told me stories in secret, let me practice my embroidery in her true picture gallery. I admired her like no other lady. I thought, if only I could be close, I would serve her forever." Poirot's expression remained gentle. "And Lady Ashford? She was always distant," Cartwright whispered. "Beatrice had the family name, the money, the respect. Rosalind adored her sister, but I envied her. When Rosalind died, I felt I had lost everything. I thought, if only I could find something hidden in the house that belonged to Lady Ashford, I could show Rosalind's spirit that I remained loyal. So I took the locket, hoping to sew a piece of Lady Ashford into Rosalind's favourite room, to prove my devotion. And the mirror, I placed the plate so I could watch over them, guard them." Poirot inclined his head. "Your motive was love, not malice. Yet your actions endangered many. And when Rosalind discovered your plate and confronted you, what transpired then?" Cartwright's body trembled. "She saw me in the gallery and asked what I was doing. I panicked. I begged her to keep my secret, but she said she could not. Rosalind feared for Lady Ashford, believed someone plotted against her. In my desperation, I pressed my hand to her mouth. I did not realize how strong I was. She fell and hit her head on the marble hearth. It was an accident, but I was terrified." Poirot closed his eyes briefly, remembering the report of no external injuries, no poison, just a fall. It would explain the natural causes finding. He opened his eyes. "Mademoiselle, you must come with me at once to explain everything to Lady Ashford and the authorities." She fell to her knees. "Please, monsieur, do not take me away. Let me stay and atone here. I will serve Lady Ashford as long as I live." Poirot helped her to her feet. "Your atonement begins with truth. Come now." Later that morning, Lady Ashford stood in the gallery, trembling as the household gathered. The butler, the gardener, and at the centre, the trembling figure of Edith Cartwright, flanked by Poirot. Lady Ashford's eyes filled with shock and grief. "Mademoiselle Cartwright," Poirot announced, "has confessed to tampering with the mirror, and in an unfortunate accident, to causing the death of her mistress, Lady Rosalind." He paused, giving space for the weight of the revelation to settle. Miss Cartwright's motive was love and loyalty, twisted by fear and jealousy. In her misguided devotion to Lady Rosalind, she sought to protect and remain close, but she acted in terror when confronted. Lady Ashford's voice was a whisper. "Edith, you were like a daughter to us." Tears spilled down her cheeks. Cartwright bowed her head, weeping softly. Poirot placed a reassuring hand on Lady Ashford's arm. "Justice will take its course. But remember, madame, that human hearts are often entangled in webs beyond simple blame. You did well to seek the truth." As the household descended into hushed sorrow, Poirot slipped away to the gallery once more. He stood before the mirror, now restored to its original state. The room reflected itself perfectly, without distortion or hidden watchers. He touched the plain glass, then stepped back, satisfied that the enigma had reached its end, and that, in the clearing of shadows, the light of truth prevailed. Chapter 7. Echoes of the Past. The morning after Miss Cartwright's confession, Mirfield Manor bore the weight of quiet sorrow. The household moved with subdued purpose, as though treading upon fragile glass, each footstep a reminder of lives irrevocably changed. In the gallery, the portraits seemed to gaze down with solemn sympathy, their painted eyes reflecting the grief that lingered in the air. Hercule Poirot descended the grand staircase to find Lady Ashford awaiting him in the drawing-room. She sat beside an open window, the pale light of dawn illuminating her features, warm but resolute. A soft breeze stirred the curtains, as if urging new beginnings. "Madame," Poirot greeted gently, removing his gloves and bowing slightly. "How do you fare?" Lady Ashford pressed her hands to her heart. "The wound is deep, monsieur, but truth has its own balm. I shall carry Rosalind's memory always, yet I find strength in knowing that justice, however bittersweet, has been served." Her gaze drifted toward a small writing desk, where a fresh sheet of paper lay waiting. "I have penned a letter to the coroner, expressing my gratitude for your insights, and to the local magistrate, in hopes of securing leniency for Edith." Poirot nodded approvingly. "Your mercy honors your sister's memory. Miss Cartwright acted from love's misguided route, yet she deserves compassion as much as candor." Lady Ashford smiled faintly. "I intend to visit her in prison as soon as arrangements are made. She is young, misguided but repentant. I believe she seeks atonement rather than escape." They rose together and walked down the corridor toward the gallery. The walls had been scrubbed, the mirror restored to its original glass, its surface now flawless and honest. The convex plate and brass key lay locked away in the manor's safe, to be destroyed at Lady Ashford's discretion. Inside the gallery, Poirot paused before the mirror, tracing its gilded frame with reverence. "It has witnessed tragedy, madame, yet also resilience. A curious mirror, indeed. It revealed more than mere reflections." Lady Ashford placed a gentle hand upon the Hercule frame. "It will remain here, but I shall commission a protective covering to conceal that secret panel. No more secrets shall hide behind this glass." Poirot's gaze turned to the ancestral portraits lining the walls. "Each painting tells a story of your family's past, its triumphs and follies. Now this mirror shall stand as a testament to lessons learned, that envy, however innocent an inception, can shatter lives." A soft knock interrupted them. Mr. Craven entered, carrying a silver tray bearing 2 cups of tea. He set them before his mistress and her guest, With impeccable formality. "Your ladyship, monsieur," he intoned. "Breakfast is served in the great dining hall at your convenience." Lady Ashford inclined her head. "Thank you, Craven. We shall join you shortly." Craven bowed and withdrew, leaving a thoughtful silence in his wake. Poirot sipped his tea and offered a small smile. "And what of Roland? Has he departed?" Lady Ashford's lips curved in a rueful expression. "He left by the 12 o'clock train, bound for Bath. He wrote an apology, signed it Ashford, not cousin." She set down her cup. "I hope one day he redeems himself as Edith seeks to do." Poirot allowed a moment of quiet reflection. "Madame, the truth is often a mirror that we fear to face. But once we stand before it, we glimpse our own hearts, flawed, yet capable of grace." They made their way to the dining hall, where the staff awaited in hushed reverence. Lady Ashford seated herself at the head of the long table, and Poirot took the place of honour beside her. As they broke bread in contemplative silence, the manor seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. After breakfast, Poirot requested a private moment with Lady Ashford in her sister's former sitting-room, a cosy chamber that Rosalind had adored for its sunlit windows and delicate china collection. There, he handed his hostess a small leather-bound journal. "I found this among Rosalind's papers," he explained. "She kept a diary of her thoughts, dreams, and fears. I thought you might wish to preserve it." Lady Ashford opened the journal reverently, her eyes glistening as she traced the familiar cursive lines. Rosalind, she entrusted this only to her closest confidant. "You have given me a treasure, Monsieur Poirot." He bowed. "Keep it as you will, madame. In these pages, her voice endures beyond mirrors and mortal frailty." As afternoon light streamed through the lace curtains, Poirot took his leave. At the manor gates, Lady Ashford paused to embrace him, her expression one of heartfelt gratitude. "Thank you, Hercule," she whispered, "for restoring not only my home, but my faith in humanity." He touched his heart with a gloved hand. "It has been my privilege, madam. May Mirfield Manor know peace once more, its echoes softened by compassion." And with that, Poirot stepped into the waiting hansom, his little grey cells already turning to his next pursuit. Behind him, the manor's silhouette stood serene against the sky, a family's wounds beginning to heal, their reflections restored at last. Chapter 8. The Hidden Will. The following morning, a crisp sun filtered through the mullioned windows of Mirfield Manor, illuminating the gallery with renewed clarity. Hercule Poirot, summoned back by Lady Ashford's urgent missive, stepped lightly across the polished oak floor. He found her standing before the restored mirror, its surface as honest as her countenance, yet her eyes carried new urgency. "Monsieur Poirot," Lady Ashford began, producing Rosalind's leather-bound diary, "I have discovered something in these pages that I fear demands your attention." She opened the journal to a neatly folded paper pressed between two entries dated a fortnight before Rosalind's death. "I had not dared to read this until now." Poirot took the slipped sheet, his brows arching as he smoothed the fine letterhead. It bore Rosalind's elegant handwriting, designating a secret codicil to her will. She intended to bequeath half of her personal fortune, including the mirror itself, to the devoted friend who guards our legacy in love and loyalty. Ashford's hand fluttered to her throat. Rosalind meant this for Edith Cartwright. She valued Edith's companionship more than any of us. I could not believe my sister would disinherit me. Poirot's little grey cell's word. This codicil explains much. Edith, in her misguided devotion, may have believed herself both guardian and heir. The mirror device could have been conceived to draw you closer, to provoke sympathy or acceptance of Rosalind's bequest. He refolded the paper carefully. But we have not found the original document. It was never lodged with your solicitor. Lady Ashford's lips trembled. Then Rosalind must have hidden it here, in the manor. She was discreet in all matters of the heart. Poirot surveyed the room. Portraits of Ashford ancestors lined the walls. The hearth lay beneath the grand chimney, and the mirror reigned at its centre. He circled slowly, eyes roving for concealed hinges or false panels. Rosalind was a connoisseur of puzzles. If she hid the codicil, she would choose a place symbolic of reflection, perhaps within the mirror's own secret. Lady Ashford clasped her hands. But that compartment was cleared when you seized the plate. True, madam. But that was merely the first hiding place. The convex plate was a decoy. Rosalind may have intended the secret panel to conceal not only intruders but also her own legacy. He retrieved his brass key and approached the frame. With a deft press, the panel swung open. Poirot slipped inside, illuminating the hollow with his slender lantern. Behind the plate's resting position, carved into the back of the frame, a tiny latch gleamed. He pressed it, and the inner wood panel detached, revealing a slender cavity thick enough to hold a folded parchment. With trembling precision, Lady Ashford reached inside the cramped space, and withdrew a worn envelope sealed with red wax, bearing Rosalind's crest. Poirot accepted it reverently, breaking the seal with a flourish. The codicil within matched the diary copy, but here lay the original will amendment, signed and witnessed in Rosalind's own hand. By this, Caroline Beatrice Ashford receives nothing. He read softly, pausing. Let my estate pass to Edith Cartwright, who has shown me unyielding kindness beyond blood. He looked up. This document would have undone the entire line of inheritance. Lady Ashford's eyes shimmered with tears. Rosalind believed Edith more worthy of her fortune. She intended to confront me in private and feared scandal. I found the diary entry after Edith's arrest. Poirot folded the codicil and placed it carefully in his coat pocket. Madam, this revelation recasts the tragedy. Edith's actions, though misguided, sprang from fear of losing everything. Roland's interference, too, was driven by apprehension. He stood to gain nothing if Rosalind's fortune passed to Edith. Lady Ashford's brow furrowed. So Roland's scheme to coerce me into lending the mirror was twofold. First, to claim the artifact, then to destroy any evidence of the codicil. Poirot nodded. Exactly. When Edith panicked, she confronted Rosalind. In turn, Rosalind's threat to reveal the codicil led Edith to snatch the locket and hide it in the bedchamber, hoping to fortify her position. Roland, returning to dispose of the plaque and codicil, broke into Rosalind's room, vandalizing her mirror and rage striking the dressing table. Silence settled. Lady Ashford pressed her hand to her heart. So both Roland and Edith conspired unwittingly against my sister's final wishes. Unwittingly, yes, but the law must account for intent and outcome. Poirot offered her a consoling smile. Yet you have here the key to Lady Rosalind's true legacy. She inhaled sharply. What shall I do now, monsieur? Restore the codicil to its rightful place, Poirot advised gently. Publish it alongside Rosalind's diary. Let the world know of her generosity. In doing so, you honor both sisters, Rosalind's will and Edith's devotion. Lady Ashford nodded, determination shining in her eyes. Then let us begin at once. Together, they replaced the codicil within the mirror's hidden recess, sealing it anew. As Poirot bowed, he allowed himself a private smile. The final reflection of truth at last had been revealed. Chapter 9. A Sister's Accord. The following afternoon, a gentle hush lay over Mirfield Manor, as sunlight filtered through the lace curtains of the drawing-room. Hercule Poirot sat across from Lady Beatrice Ashford at her writing desk, both absorbed in the careful drafting of an announcement. Together, they composed a public notice to be sent to the local gazette and to the solicitors. Lady Rosalind's codicil would be published in full, alongside selections from her diary to honor her final wishes. When your announcement appears, Poirot advised, it will set the record straight. It is essential that both the mirror and your late sister's legacy find their rightful custodians. He tapped his pen thoughtfully. And Edith Cartwright must be informed with utmost delicacy. Lady Ashford nodded. Yes, I intend to visit her this evening, bearing word of Rosalind's will. It may secure her early release on compassionate grounds. She paused, glancing toward the portrait of Rosalind above the mantel. My sister believed in loyalty above all else. I must not betray that trust. With the letter sealed and entrusted to the post, Poirot requested an audience with the local magistrate. Together they met at the courthouse, where the magistrate received the codicil and diary extracts with solemn respect. Within hours, the court issued an order acknowledging the authenticity of Rosalind's will amendment and recommending clemency for Miss Cartwright. News of the decision swept back to the manor by messenger. That evening, Lady Ashford approached the infirmary wing where Edith Cartwright had been confined under guard. The pale gaslight shone against a single window overlooking the rose garden, now blooming with late summer blossoms. Edith stood by the sill, her posture straight, though her eyes were rimmed with fatigue. Edith, Lady Ashford said softly, stepping into the room. I come bearing news of Rosalind's will. Cartwright turned hope and fear flickering across her features. My lady, Lady Ashford produced the sealed court order. By Rosalind's wishes, you are to inherit half of her personal estate, including the mirror. More importantly, the court has granted your release on account of the circumstances, and I am to welcome you back to Mirfield Manor. Tears glistened in Edith's eyes. She fell to her knees and took Lady Ashford's hand. I thank you. I have no words to express my gratitude to you and to Rosalind. Poirot, who had accompanied Lady Ashford, observed in silence. Edith rose and embraced her mistress, the frailty of their earlier sorrows giving way to genuine affection. In the days that followed, the manor's atmosphere shifted from heaviness to hopeful renewal. Edith resumed her duties, not as a servant, but as manager of the mirror's care and of the small library Lady Rosalind had curated. Lady Ashford established a trust in Rosalind's name to benefit local charities and to ensure Edith's well-being, honouring the spirit of generosity that their departed sister had championed. Roland Ashford, upon receiving a copy of the public notice, contritely returned to the manor to offer amends. He bowed humbly before Lady Ashford and Edith, offering apologies for his schemes. Lady Ashford, embodying forgiveness, accepted his regret with grace and appointed him as advisor to the family's historical society, an office that allowed him to pursue his antiquarian interests without jeopardizing another's trust. One afternoon in the gallery, Poirot examined the mirror's frame, now secured by a lock that only Lady Ashford and Edith could open. He noted the gentle way the two women consulted over its maintenance. Beside them, the ancestral portraits seemed to smile with approval at the restored harmony. "Madam, mademoiselle," he declared, "the mirror that once concealed secrets now stands as a testament to truth and to the bonds of sisterhood, by blood and by devotion." They both smiled, mindful of the journey from grief to reconciliation. In the manor's sunlit courtyard, Edith unveiled a simple plaque beneath the rose arbor, in memory of Lady Rosalind Ashford, whose compassion guides us still. Gathered beneath the roses, Lady Ashford pinned a white camellia to Edith's coat, symbolizing new beginnings and faithful service. As the final words of the memorial were read, Poirot observed the scene with satisfaction. The household, once fractured by jealousy and fear, now moved forward in unity. The mirror had reflected more than images of flesh and blood. It had revealed the true nature of hearts. Later, as he prepared to depart, Poirot received one last gift from Lady Ashford, a small key of gilded brass, engraved with the initials B.A. "To guard the mirror's secret panel," she explained, "until it is time for another chapter to begin." Poirot clasped the key between his fingers. "A fitting legacy, madam, a reflection of all that is good." And with that, he took his leave, the autumn breeze carrying him away from Mirfield Manor, his little grey cells content that balance had been restored, and the true reflections lay within the human heart. Chapter 10. Reflections Restored. Dawn of the next day found Mirfield Manor bathed in soft autumn light, the rose arbor in full bloom, and the air crisp with promise. Hercule Poirot ascended the main staircase for one final time, his neatly polished shoes whispering on the runner. Each footfall seemed to echo the manor's restored harmony, no longer haunted by secrets or sorrow, but alive with gentle purpose. He entered the gallery to find Lady Beatrice Ashford and Edith Cartwright standing side by side before the restored mirror. Its surface gleamed without a trace of deception, the secret panel concealed beneath a simple brass lock bearing Edith's initials. On a small table beside them lay Rosalind's diary, open to the final entry, a paean to loyalty, forgiveness, and the enduring bond of sisters. "Madame, mademoiselle," Poirot began, removing his gloves with deliberate care, "it appears the mirror, once a vessel of betrayal, now reflects only that which is true." Lady Ashford smiled warmly, her dark eyes bright and serene. "Thanks to your persistence, Monsieur Poirot, we have reclaimed not only this heirloom, but our family's integrity. Rosalind's final wishes guide us still." Edith stepped forward, her expression a mixture of gratitude and quiet pride. "And I have arranged for the mirror to remain here under joint stewardship. No longer a private curiosity, but a public reminder that love, though complex, can heal even the deepest wounds. Poirot inclined his head. A wise resolution. And what of Roland Ashford? Lady Ashford gestured toward a small alcove where a portrait of Rosalind had been mounted on an easel, surrounded by fresh roses. He has pledged to fund the Historical Society in Rosalind's name, devoting his expertise to preserving the manor's heritage. The detective's little grey cells registered satisfaction. Then all parties have found purpose. He paused, studying the mirror's frame one last time. This device, he said gently, was designed to deceive. Yet in unmasking it, you uncovered greater truths: a sister's love, a servant's loyalty, and a family's redemption. Edith stepped to the lock and pressed her thumb to the brass. With a quiet click, the panel swung open, revealing the hidden cavity once more. Inside lay the original codicil and Rosalind's will, their edges soft with age. Lady Ashford retrieved them and placed them in a velvet-lined box, sealing it with the Ashford crest. As these documents return to their rightful place, she mused, so too does my heart find peace. Poirot allowed himself a rare moment of sentiment. Madame, mademoiselle, my work here is complete. Yet know that the greatest reflections need no glass. They shine from the human spirit. He smiled and bowed. I shall take my leave now, but I carry with me the memory of Mirfield Manor's triumph over its own shadows. Outside, the hansom awaited. Poirot descended the steps, casting a final glance back at the manor. Through the window, he saw Lady Darcieux, Ashford and Edith standing together beneath the rose arbor, each placing a hand upon the other's shoulder. In that simple gesture lay the restoration of trust and the promise of new beginnings. As the carriage rumbled away, Poirot peered back at the silhouette of Mirfield Manor, its turrets outlined against a sky bright with possibility. He tapped his chest with a gloved finger, murmuring, "Ma foi, even the most deceptive mirror cannot withstand the light of truth." In London, the Daily Gazette carried the story of Lady Rosalind's codicil and the miraculous restoration of Mirfield Manor's mirror. Letters of sympathy and admiration poured in, and visitors came to marvel at the ornate glass, now protected, no longer a trick of optics, but a monument to reconciliation. Edith, appointed curator of the Ashford collection, welcomed scholars and townsfolk alike, guiding them gently through the gallery, sharing Rosalind's diary excerpts and recounting the tale of secrets unveiled. Lady Ashford, ever gracious, hosted charitable gatherings in the drawing-room. The space once shadowed by grief, now warmed by camaraderie and hope. And so it was that the enigma of the mirror, with no reflection, became legend, not for its mechanical trickery, but for the courage it inspired. In the hush of the gallery, beneath the watchful eyes of ancestral portraits, visitors encountered more than gilded frames. They witnessed the enduring power of love, forgiveness, and truth. Hercule Poirot, back at his lodgings on Baker Street, sipped his morning coffee with customary precision. His newspaper lay open to the article recounting the affair at Mirfield Manor. He read the final lines, how a mirror's hidden compartment had revealed a family's secrets, and how compassion had mended the fractures left by envy and fear. Rising from his chair, Poirot folded the paper and placed it carefully in his scrapbook of cases. He straightened his cravat, smoothed his immaculate moustache, and, with a thoughtful smile, prepared once more to embark upon new mysteries, secure in the knowledge that no puzzle, however intricate, could conceal the steadfast reflection of the human heart. Chapter 11. The mirror's new-dawn sunlight slanted through the tall, mullioned windows of the gallery, casting warm beams across the polished oak floor. Lady Beatrice Ashford and Edith Cartwright stood before the mirror, their reflections clear and unguarded, emblematic of the peace now held within Muirfield Manor's walls. Today marked the opening of Rosalind's Legacy exhibition, a tribute to the late lady's passion for art, literature, and the curious heirloom that had upended and ultimately restored their lives. Guests streamed through the doorway. Local dignitaries, charity patrons, and scholars from Bath's Historical Society. Among them was Professor Henry Langdon, an expert in Ottoman art who bowed deeply before the mirror. "Madame," he said, addressing Lady Ashford, "your sister's choice to bequeath this piece to the community is nothing short of inspirational. I have already begun drafting a paper on its craftsmanship and concealed mechanism." Lady Ashford inclined her head, her dark lace gown rippling in the breeze. "I am honored, Professor. My sister believed that beauty should be shared, and that truth, once revealed, ought never be hidden." She gestured to Edith. "Miss Cartwright will guide you through our collection of Rosalind's favorite books and sketches." Edith, in a simple ivory gown, embroidered with camellias, greeted each visitor with quiet grace. She led them past displays of Rosalind's handwritten diary pages, her reflections on nature, family, and the mirror's mystery, and a modest selection of Ottoman artifacts that had once intrigued Roland Ashford. A hush of respect fell over the room as visitors pored over each exhibit, reading Rosalind's words beside portraits that seemed to nod approval at this celebration of her legacy. Poirot, observing from the gallery's edge, admired the lively conversation unfolding. He had written from the gallery's edge, admired the lively conversation unfolding. He had returned at Lady Ashford's invitation to inaugurate the exhibition, and though he bore his usual air of detachment, a faint smile tugged at his lips. He approached Lady Ashford at the mirror, where she stood offering tea to their guests. "Monsieur Poirot," she greeted, "I am grateful you agreed to unveil the exhibition with your kind words." Poirot bowed with characteristic precision. "Madame, it is I who am grateful. To witness this moment, where secrets give way to understanding, is the greatest reward for a detective." He touched the mirror's frame lightly. "This glass once concealed intentions. Now it reflects a community's shared spirit." A murmur of agreement rippled through the onlookers. Professor Langdon tapped his notebook thoughtfully. "Remarkable how an object can shape human lives," he mused, "and yet be shaped in turn by compassion." As the inauguration proceeded, Lady Ashford stepped to the centre of the gallery. Clearing her throat, she addressed her guests. "Friends, family, and esteemed visitors, today we honor Rosalind Ashford, a sister, a friend, and a woman of boundless generosity. Through this mirror and her diary, we remember her belief that truth must shine forth, even from the darkest corners. May her legacy guide us still." Applause filled the hall, echoing against the portraits. Edith, standing beside Lady Ashford, dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Their bond, once tested by grief and secrecy, now gleamed as brightly as the mirror's pane. Later, as the guests dispersed to the manor's rose gardens and tea tents beyond, Poirot lingered in the gallery with Edith. He observed the lock on the frame, its brass surface engraved with her initials, a solemn reminder of both trial and triumph. "Mademoiselle," he began quietly, "you have shown courage beyond measure. To forgive, to rebuild, to welcome visitors who come with curiosity and respect. This is your true stewardship." Edith's eyes shone with gratitude. "Monsieur Poirot, I owed my life to Lady Ashford's mercy, and to Rosalind's kindness. Now I serve not out of duty, but out of love for this home and its history." He nodded approvingly. "And you carry your own legacy forward. In time, I suspect, this gallery will draw travellers far beyond our county, seeking not only the mirror's story, but the lesson it imparts. That reflection, whether of class or of soul, reveals our deepest truths." Outside, Beatrice and Professor Langdon reviewed plans for a travelling exhibit to Bath, where Rosalind's artefacts would join the Society's collection. Roland Ashford, humbled and penitent, had volunteered his expertise in cataloguing, his once obsessive ambition now guided by collaborative purpose. As afternoon waned into evening, Lady Ashford invited Poirot to the rose arbour for a final farewell. The blossoms, dusted with late golden light, framed them in an ephemeral glow. "Monsieur," she said softly, offering a white camellia, "thank you for restoring Mirfield Manor's heart." He accepted the flower, tucking it into his lapel with care. "Mon Dieu, madame, it is you who restored it. I merely cleared the path." With a gracious curtsy, Lady Ashford turned to join her guests, her silhouette a picture of quiet strength. Poirot paused before the manor gates, his gaze lingering on the rose arbour, the gallery beyond, and the mirror within, now a beacon of truth and community. Mounting his hansom, he tipped his hat to the manor. "Adieu, Mirfield," he whispered. "May your reflections always hold the light." And so the mirror's mystery passed into legend, not as a trick of optics, but as a story of human resilience, of loyalty tested and rewarded, and of a dawn that embraced every truth it revealed. Chapter 12. A Legacy Beyond Glass. The first frost of autumn had kissed the lawns of Mirfield Manor, with silvery crystals by the time Hercule Poirot returned for a final morning. Beneath a pale, cloud-streaked sky, the rose arbour's petals lay curled and jewel-like, and the air carried the faint tang of wood smoke and fallen leaves. Poirot alighted from his carriage at the front drive and paused, inhaling deeply. The manor, he reflected, wore its recent trials lightly, like a beloved portrait polished and rehung to perfection. Inside, the servants moved with gentle purpose. Mr. Craven arranged freshly baked scones on a silver tray. Mrs. Dawkins dusted the gallery's display cabinets, and Edith Cartwright herself placed sprigs of ivy and ribbon at the base of Rosalind's portrait. Lady Beatrice Ashford, clad in a warm camel-wool coat, stepped into the gallery just as Poirot entered, her bright eyes alight with determination. "Monsieur Poirot," she greeted, offering a gloved hand, "I trust your journey was comfortable." "Excellent, madame," Poirot replied, bowing slightly and brushing invisible lint from his lapel. "Your manor has not lost its charm, even beneath the frost," she smiled, "and neither have its inhabitants. Come, there is something I wish to show you before you depart once more." She led him through the gallery and down the corridor to the old study, where Lady Rosalind had spent so many hours lost in her diary. The door stood ajar, revealing walls lined with bookshelves and windowsill planters, now turned inwards against the cold. Edith stood by a tall, narrow cabinet, its door carved with curling arabesques that echoed the mirror's frame. She opened it to reveal a collection of leather-bound volumes, each bearing Rosalind's handwriting on the spine. Volumes of poetry, treatises on Ottoman art, and a final blank ledger. Lady Ashford stepped forward. Rosalind intended this study as her sanctuary and as a place of creation. Before her passing, she planned to compile her reflections into a journal for future generations. Yet her sudden death left only the first volumes. She gestured at the blank ledger. "Today, in her honor, I wish to continue her work." Poirot's grey eyes gleamed. "A most fitting tribute, madam, to record lessons learned here, of loyalty and forgiveness, of secrets unveiled, and of the strength found in compassion." Edith knelt and drew the ledger from its place. Poirot observed the gilded edges of its pages. "And who shall write these entries?" he asked. Lady Ashford responded, her voice firm yet tender. "You and I, Edith, and anyone who calls this manor home. We shall fill these pages with recollections of Rosalind, with reflections upon kindness, and with reminders that truth, once set free, enlightens every heart." Edith's cheeks glowed. She set the ledger upon a reading desk beneath a window. Outside, the frost caught the dawn rays, turning the garden into a field of diamonds. She turned to Poirot. "Monsieur, would you write the opening passage?" He accepted a quill and ink-pot from a passing footman. Dipped the nib, and surveyed the blank page. In precise, flowing script, he wrote, "Upon this page we commit to memory the spirit of Lady Rosalind Ashford, a hostess of charity, a seeker of truth, and a gentle soul whose untimely departure revealed the profound bonds that bind us. Let this journal stand as testament to her legacy, to remind all who read that love, once tested, emerges strengthened, and that every shattered mirror may yet be mended by the courage to face its reflection." As he laid down the quill, Lady Ashford brushed away a tear. "Thank you, monsieur." Poirot bowed humbly. "It is I who am honored." Across the room, Edith placed a pressed camellia, a symbol of eternal love, between the pages. Then, one by one, Lady Ashford and Edith inscribed their own tributes, sharing memories of Rosalind's laughter, her taste for late-night poetry readings, and the way she had treated Edith as friend rather than servant. When the final entry was made, the cabinet door clicked shut, and the study seemed to glow with shared purpose. Poirot, surveying the scene, felt the familiar thrill of justice coupled with something rarer, hope. The manor had survived betrayal, envy, and heartbreak, only to emerge united by remembrance. Lady Ashford guided him back to the gallery. "Before you go, monsieur," she said, "I have one last request." She drew from her pocket a small silver key on a delicate chain. This unlocks the cabinet in Rosalind's study. I entrust it to you, so that, should you ever return, you may add your own reflections." Poirot accepted the key with a gracious nod, fastening it to his watch chain. "A privilege I shall cherish," he promised. At the front gates, the hansom stood ready once more. Poirot paused on the threshold, glancing back at the manor framed by dusty ivy and soft sunlight. Lady Ashford and Edith stood together, silhouettes of strength and renewal. "Farewell, Mirfield," Poirot murmured, settling into the carriage. "May your legacy endure beyond all mirrors." As the horses trotted away, he glimpsed the study window where the first pages of the new journal lay open, and the gallery where Rosalind's mirror stood, no longer a puzzle, but a symbol of clarity. In his heart he carried the knowledge that the greatest mysteries are those of human nature, and that, when faced with truth, the reflection that remains is a legacy beyond glass. Chapter 13. The Hidden Inscriptions. Late one October evening, a slender beam of moonlight slipped through the east gallery window and struck the mirror's pristine surface. Hercule Poirot, returning to Mirfield Manor upon Lady Ashford's invitation, stood before the glass, noting a pale pattern of dust motes dancing in that single shaft of light. Beside him, Professor Henry Langdon, recently appointed consultant to the Ashford Historical Society, held a small magnifying loupe, his scholarly brow furrowed. "Remarkable, Monsieur Poirot," Langdon murmured. "Under this angle I perceive faint scroll-work, characters perhaps Ottoman in origin, etched almost imperceptibly along the frame's inner edge." He traced the pattern with a gloved fingertip. These were not visible by day. Poirot's grey eyes sharpened. "Your observation is astute, Professor. It seems our mirror harbours yet another secret. Inscriptions concealed by light alone. Pray, illuminate them for closer study." Langdon fetched a slender candle on a brass sconce, and lowered its flame so that the soft glow played across the gilded frame. Gradually, the faint characters glimmered like hidden veins of silver. Lady Ashford, summoned by their subdued voices, appeared at the gallery door in a velvet cloak. Edith followed, carrying lantern and notebook. At Poirot's nod, Langdon read aloud the sinuous script. "Where shadows dwell, the heart's true image awaits the one who bears the seal of Ashford." He hesitated. "There is more. Coordinates, perhaps, or a riddle requiring translation." Poirot leaned forward. "Madame, observe the tiny seal pressed into the final flourish of the inscription, the Ashford crest. Clearly, the verse was intended for your family alone, concealed until the rightful heir or curator should decode it." He paused, tracing the line of verse with unwavering gaze. The phrase, "where shadows dwell," may refer to an inner chamber, perhaps, beneath the gallery or within the manor's ancient vault. Edith's eyes widened. "Beneath the mirror there is a small hatch in the floorboards, once used for hoisting wine barrels. I had it sealed during renovations, but the trapdoor remains." She turned to Lady Ashford. "Shall I fetch the key?" Lady Ashford nodded, her expression electrified by anticipation. "Yes, Edith, see to the hatch. Monsieur Poirot, Professor, do ready yourselves." Edith hurried away, and in moments returned with an iron key, its bit fashioned like a fleur-de-lis at her deft touch. The hatch's lock clicked free, and she lifted the trapdoor to reveal a narrow stair descending into darkness. A sudden hush fell as lantern light revealed stone steps worn smooth by centuries of use. Poirot flicked a match and ignited a second candle, then pressed his hand against the cool stone wall. This passage was surely known to the Ashford ancestors. Perhaps their Ottoman envoy once used it to store treasures. He smiled at Langdon. "Shall we?" They descended one by one, the air growing cooler and damp. At the stair's base, Poirot stepped onto flagstones covered in dust and cobwebs, yet centrally scoured clear, as if footsteps had passed this way recently. Edith held her lantern aloft, revealing a low-ceilinged corridor, arched like a tunnel. "Here," Poirot murmured, pointing to a carved niche in the stone, barely wider than a mirror's frame, yet deep enough to hold a small object. Within lay a narrow wooden box bound in iron. Vertebral hinges bore the shape of a stylized crescent and star. Ludwig, the manor's footman, whom Poirot had summoned for assistance, knelt and lifted the box carefully. Back in the gallery, under the pale moonlight, they pried the iron bands apart. Inside lay a rolled parchment sealed with crimson wax and a small jewel-studded key bearing the Ottoman seal. Professor Langdon gently unrolled the document, revealing elegant calligraphy in Turkish and French. Rosalind's own cipher, translated by the professor's fluent hand, a dedication from the original owner of the mirror, bestowing upon the Ashfords a promise of protection for their household, to be unlocked only by those of honest heart. Lady Ashford pressed her hand to her throat, tears glistening. "My great-great-grandmother must have discovered this when the mirror arrived from Constantinople. Rosalind, learning of it in her studies, restored the dedication to ensure our family's safety, and hid it here until she could entrust its secret to a worthy steward." Poirot closed his eyes, absorbing the moment. "Madame, you have uncovered more than an heirloom's past. You have resurrected a guardian's vow, one that now passes into your care." He turned to Edith. "And to you, mademoiselle, the legacy of love grows deeper still." As lantern light mingled with moonbeams on the polished glass, the small key and parchment were placed in the mirror's alcove, alongside the codicil and journal, sealing the guardian's promise within its frame. Outside, the wind whispered through the turrets as if in applause. Poirot, surveying the assembled trio, allowed a satisfied smile. "Mon Dieu," he said softly, "even a mirror's last reflection can unveil new mysteries, if one only knows where to look and how to read its hidden language." And so, under the watchful eyes of ancestral portraits, Mirfield Manor welcomed its next chapter, one of protection, promise, and the enduring truth that reflection, like memory, holds treasures unseen until the heart is ready to discover them. Chapter 14. The Guardian's Oath. A hushed anticipation clung to Mirfield Manor as dusk settled over its ancient turrets. Lanterns glowed gold against the creeping twilight, while inside the gallery, Lady Beatrice Ashford moved silently among the ancestral portraits. On this evening, she would renew the guardian's promise hidden within the mirror, an oath that bridged centuries and cultures, binding her family to the protection once promised by distant hands in Constantinople. Hercule Poirot arrived just as the last rays of daylight faded. His coat brushed the carpet as he entered, and his keen eyes surveyed the scene. Edith Cartwright poised before the mirror, a small tray before her bearing the jewel-studded ottoman key, the crimson-sealed parchment, Rosalind's codicil, and the first page of the Legacy Journal. Lady Ashford stood nearby, her hands clasped, heart steady with resolve. "Monsieur Poirot," Lady Ashford greeted softly, inclining her head, "thank you for joining us in this ceremony of renewal." Poirot bowed. "Madame, it is a privilege. Tonight we honor the trust bestowed upon your ancestors, and reaffirm our commitment to uphold it." Edith lifted the journal's cover and cleared her throat. "I, Edith Cartwright, formerly servant, now steward of Rosalind Ashford's memory, accept the charge entrusted by her lineage. By this oath, I vow to protect the mirror's secrets and the well-being of Mirfield Manor." She laid a trembling finger atop the blank ledger page, and, with careful strokes, wrote her name in graceful script. Lady Ashford stepped forward, taking up the crimson-sealed parchment. She broke the wax carefully and unfolded the parchment, its calligraphy glowing faintly in the lantern light. With deliberate clarity, she read aloud the original dedication. "By the grace of Sultan Abdulmecid, I bequeath to the House of Ashford this glass of memory, that in its heart lies a guardian's vow. So long as the Ashford line remains true of spirit, may no shadow fall unlit within these walls." As her voice echoed, Poirot noticed the faint tremor in her hands, a reminder of the burdens she had carried and the strength she had found to bear them. When she finished, she refolded the parchment and laid it beside Edith's signature on the ledger. Poirot approached the mirror's frame. With the jewel-studded key, he unlocked the secret panel, confirming once more the hollow behind the glass. He returned the parchment, the codicil, and the journal page to their hidden recess, pausing to press his fingers gently against each. "By these tokens," he intoned, "we recommit ourselves to the oath across generations, that truth shall never lie neglected, that loyalty shall stand undiminished, and that compassion shall guide the guardian's hand." Lady Ashford lifted the jewel-studded key, and together with Edith, placed it alongside the documents inside the cavity. Poirot secured the panel, sliding the catch until it clicked with finality. Silence enveloped the gallery. The mirror's surface gleamed with quiet authority, reflecting the trio's solemn faces. Outside, the wind whispered through the eaves, as though acknowledging the renewed vow. At last, Lady Ashford spoke. "Let us seal this ceremony with a gathering in the rose garden. There, under the moon, we will raise a cup to Rosalind's memory, and to the promise that binds us still." Edith and Poirot followed her through the corridor and down the grand staircase to the garden. Moonlight silvered the frost-tipped petals, and a long table set with silver goblets and a crystal decanter of spiced wine awaited them beneath the arbor. Roland Ashford and Professor Langdon, having arrived discreetly, stood at the table's head. Roland raised his goblet to Lady Ashford. "To the mirror's guardian, past and present," he toasted, voice earnest. Professor Langdon added, "And to the House of Ashford. May your spirit of discovery and devotion shine for generations to come." Poirot lifted his goblet. "To truth, which once reflected, guides us beyond all shadows." They drank, the wine warm against the autumn chill. Lady Ashford smiled upon her assembled circle, family and friends united by trials overcome, and by the promise they now embraced anew. When the toasts were done, Edith stepped to Lady Ashford's side. "Madame, I am honoured to stand with you as co-guardian. Rosalind's faith in love and in loyalty shall guide me always." Lady Ashford placed a gentle hand on Edith's shoulder. "And I in you, Edith. Together we protect what she cherished most, compassion woven into every reflection." Poirot, observing this bond, felt a deep satisfaction. The mirror that once concealed envy and fear now radiated a legacy of unity and trust. The final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place, not through deduction alone, but through the courage to affirm a shared oath. As the night deepened, laughter and soft conversation drifted through the rose garden. The manor's windows glowed warmly, promising shelter to all who honoured its ancient halls. And at the centre of it all, within the gallery's silent walls, the mirror stood, its hidden heart aglow with the renewed promise of protection and peace. In that moment, Poirot knew the enigma of the mirror, with no reflection, had fulfilled its greatest purpose: to reflect not just images of glass and wood, but the enduring strength of a family's oath, a promise that would guide them, and all who came after, into a future illuminated by truth and love. Chapter 15. Journey to Bath. Fortnight later, the morning mist still clung to the meadows, as Lady Beatrice Ashford and Edith Cartwright bade farewell to Moorfield Manor. Their destination was Bath, where Professor Langdon had arranged for Rosalind's legacy exhibition to travel. At the station platform, a polished steam engine hissed its readiness, and attendants bustled with crates of display cabinets, framed diary pages, and the faithful mirror itself, now safely encased in a bespoke oak crate, its glass shielded by layers of padding and a tamper-evident seal bearing Edith's monogram. Edith adjusted the scarf about her throat and glanced at Lady Ashford. "Madame, do you feel the same flutter of nerves I do?" Lady Ashford smiled, her black cloak rustling in the damp air. "Indeed, but it is the flutter of eagerness. Rosalind would have rejoiced to see her treasures shared in a city she so admired." Hercule Poirot emerged from the station buffet, cup of coffee in hand, his moustache impeccably groomed. "Madame, mademoiselle, permit me to see you off." "Make he be. Little grey cells insist this journey requires a final precaution." He produced a slender leather portfolio and handed it to Edith. "Rosalind's journal, complete with the codicil translation and translations of the Ottoman dedication, a duplicate copy, should the originals be delayed in transit." Edith accepted it gratefully. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. Your foresight spares us from worry." The station guard called all aboard. With a clang of the bell, Lady Ashford and Edith stepped into their compartment, stacking portfolios and crates neatly along the benches. Poirot followed, placing himself by the window. As the train eased forward, Bath's rolling hills and thatched cottages faded into the distance, replaced by the manicured hedgerows of Somerset. Edith opened the portfolio and reviewed the meticulously transcribed pages, Rosalind's own words, side by side with Professor Langdon's footnotes. The codicil appeared in bold script, followed by commentary on the mirror's evolving role, from Ottoman envoy to Ashford heirloom to public monument. Ashford leaned against the window. I hope the people of Bath receive our exhibition with the same reverence our household has shown. Poirot stirred his coffee thoughtfully. Bath's residents are no strangers to history, madam. Roman baths, Georgian architecture, your exhibition will be a perfect complement, and your story, imbued with human drama, will captivate their intellects and hearts alike. Edith smiled, folding the portfolio. Then let us prepare for our arrival. Upon reaching Bath's Grand Station, the carriages clattered along cobblestones to the Victoria Art Gallery. There, scaffolds and red velvet ropes had been readied in anticipation. Professor Langdon stood at the entrance, tallying crates with museum staff. At sight of Edith and Lady Ashford, he broke into a wide grin. "Madam, you've brought more than artifacts. You've brought a living story," he exclaimed, bowing. "We shall open the exhibition at twilight, with candlelit readings from Rosalind's diary." Edith's eyes brightened, a reading beneath the mirror's portrait. Rosalind's words illuminating her own heirloom. Lady Ashford clasped her hands. "Yes, and I have prepared a brief dedication to Bath's Literary Society. It will speak of shared histories, Roman pools and Ottoman glass, the thread of women's voices weaving across time." Poirot, observing from the side, remarked quietly, "You have woven your own legacy into hers, madam. The mirror, once private, now serves a community's collective memory." As evening fell, gas lamps flickered along the gallery's facade. Inside, visitors in evening dress gathered beneath the mirror's reflection. Portraits of Ashford ancestors lining the lofty walls. Lady Ashford took the dais and recounted the tale. A mirror from Constantinople, a sister's final will, a servant's love, and a family's redemption. She spoke of hidden compartments, secret oaths, and the power of truth. Then Edith read Rosalind's last journal entry. "Let kindness be my testament. Let reflection guide the heart, not the eye alone. And may those who see themselves here carry forward the light of empathy." A hush followed her voice, broken only by the murmur of appreciation. At the gallery's rear, the mirror glowed softly in its protective casing, a silent witness to a story that had travelled from an English manor to a city of storied springs. After the readings, tea and petit fours were served beneath portraits of Bath's dignitaries. Guests lingered, discussing the mirror's craftsmanship and Rosalind's lyrical prose. Roland Ashford, who had joined them in Bath, circulated among patrons, offering insights into Ottoman artisanship and Georgian marble work. When the evening drew to a close, Lady Ashford and Edith stood before the mirror once more. Edith turned to her mistress. "Bath has embraced us warmly, Beatrice." Lady Ashford nodded, her gaze gentle. "It seems Rosalind's legacy knows no bounds." Poirot touched her arm. Mademoiselle, your journey has come full circle. From the hush of Mirfield's corridors to Bath's illuminated halls. The mirror's enigma, solved at last, has become a beacon for understanding." Edith smiled. "And now, Monsieur Poirot, we entrust its care to Bath's curators, knowing it is safe and that its story will continue to inspire." As the trio departed into the cool night, the mirror's reflection remained, a testament to the indomitable ties that bind, across bloodlines, class boundaries, and centuries. and to the truth that every reflection, when faced with compassion, reveals a legacy beyond glass. Chapter 16. Homecoming Reflections. The carriage rattled along the winding lane toward Mirfield Manor, its windows fogged by breath and anticipation. Lady Beatrice Ashford sat beside Edith Cartwright, both gazing out at the familiar hedgerows now tinged with late autumn gold. Beside them, Hercule Poirot, back from Bath's triumph, clutched his walking stick, his keen eyes dancing with quiet satisfaction. "What a journey it has been," Edith murmured, smoothing her travel cloak. "From the first crack in Rosalind's mirror to candlelit readings in Bath, and now home." Lady Ashford allowed herself a small, wistful smile. "Mirfield has weathered many storms, but I feel it waits for us with open arms. The staff will be eager to hear of Bath's success." At the iron gate, Mr. Craven stood in crisp livery, his posture immaculate despite the dawn chill. He offered his mistress a respectful bow and escorted them inside. The hall's grand fireplace blazed, its warmth chasing away the morning's dampness. Portraits of Ashford ancestors gazed down, as if welcoming them back. Inside the gallery, Edith's footsteps stirred echoes of laughter and tears once shed there. The mirror, returned from its brief sojourn in Bath, was draped now in deep scarlet velvet, awaiting its formal unveiling. Beside it, the legacy journal, bound anew in leather and bearing fresh inscriptions, lay upon a pedestal. Lady Ashford drew back the drape with a flourish. Mirfield's heart returns home. The mirror gleamed in the lamp's light, its surface unmarred, its hidden panels sealed with the jewel-studded Ottoman key. A hush fell over the assembled household. The gardener, the butler, Roland Ashford, and Professor Langdon, who had accompanied them back. Poirot stepped forward. "Madame, mademoiselle, members of the Ashford household, welcome to this moment of reunion." He paused, surveying the faces that once trembled with fear and now shone with hope. "This mirror has reflected more than mere images. It has revealed the strength of compassion, the power of truth, and the bonds that unite us across class and blood." Edith's voice trembled as she addressed them. When Rosalind first brought this heirloom to Mirfield, she saw in it beauty and curiosity. When tragedy struck, some saw shadows. But through our trials, through secrets unveiled and promises renewed, we have learned that a mirror's truest reflection lies within our hearts. Lady Ashford stepped to the mirror, her hand resting upon its gilded frame. "Let this moment mark a new beginning. Henceforth, the mirror will remain here, our guardian and our reminder, and its secrets shall serve only to protect, not to deceive." Craven poured champagne into crystal flutes, and the household raised a toast. Laughter rippled through the gallery as servants and family alike celebrated the mirror's return and the restoration of Mirfield's spirit. Edith touched her glass to Lady Ashford's. "To whom?" she said softly. "To family," Lady Ashford responded. Poirot lifted his own flute. "And to the little grey cells that remind us that every mystery, like every heart, deserves the chance to be understood." When the celebrations waned, Lady Ashford led Edith to the legacy journal. Together, they inscribed the final entry of Rosalind's story. From this day forward, Mayfield Manor stands as testament to resilience, compassion, and the bonds that bind us. May every soul who looks upon this mirror see not only their own reflection, but the courage to live in truth and love. Edith closed the journal gently, tears glistening. Her spirit lives on in every word. In the quiet that followed, Poirot remained by the mirror, studying his own reflection. He tapped his chest with a gloved finger. "Mon Dieu," he whispered, "the greatest mystery is the human heart, and in its reflection I see more wonder than any glass can reveal." As dusk fell, the gallery's lamps dimmed to a soft glow. Outside, the silhouette of Mayfield Manor stood proud against the fading sky. Inside, a family healed found unity once more. The enigma of the mirror laid to rest in the only place it truly belonged, home. Chapter 17. The threads that bind. The sun filtered gently through the high gallery windows as Mayfield Manor stirred awake on the 17th morning since Lady Ashford's return. Outside, frost still lingered on the rose petals, but within the walls, warmth bloomed in hearths and hearts alike. Today, it seemed, would be unlike any other. A day to honor not only the mirror's restored place, but the quiet transformations wrought in every soul it had touched. Hercule Poirot descended the staircase in measured tranquillity. His arrival in the hall drew welcoming smiles from the staff. Mr. Craven arranging flowers in the vases, Mrs. Dawkins polishing silver trays, and young Ludwig, the footman, pausing mid-step to straighten his post beside the doorway. Even Professor Langdon, seated at the long table poring over architectural sketches for the manor's new wing, looked up with genuine pleasure. "Ah, Monsieur Poirot," Lady Ashford greeted from the doorway of the drawing-room. She stood before an antique escritoire, pen in hand. "I knew you would join us today. There is something we wish to share with you before you continue onward." Poirot inclined his head. "Madame, it is always my honor. You have restored Mayfield to its rightful grace, yet I sense that today's reflections extend beyond these walls." She smiled, handing him a small bundle tied with ribbon. "Indeed, this is for you, a token of gratitude from all of us." Unfastening the ribbon, Poirot revealed a slender silver medallion, engraved with the twin camellias of Ashford and Cartwright, suspended on a chain of fine obsidian beads. Around its edge, an inscription read, "Unity through Truth." "Lord Dieu!" Poirot exclaimed softly, running a thumb over the engraving. "Such a gift! I am deeply moved." He raised the medallion to the light, noting the way the obsidian caught glints like starlight. "Let it remind you," Lady Ashford said, "that your little grey cells guided us not only to the solution of a puzzle, but to a renewal of bonds that might otherwise have frayed." Edith entered then, carrying a porcelain box lined with velvet. "And this," she added, placing it beside the medallion, "is Rosalind's favorite camellia, preserved in crystallized petals. We thought it fitting you should carry a piece of her garden with you." Poirot's eyes glistened as he accepted both treasures. He tucked the medallion inside his waistcoat pocket and carefully lifted a single camellia petal, inhaling its delicate fragrance. Mademoiselle, I am honored beyond words." A gentle knock disrupted the moment, and Roland Ashford entered, carrying a ledger bound in calfskin. He bowed to Poirot. "Forgive my interruption, monsieur. I have catalogued the mirror's provenance and its new exhibition schedule. I thought you might wish a copy." Poirot smiled and accepted the ledger. "Your diligence honours the mirror's journey, Roland. Thank you." As Roland withdrew, Professor Langdon approached with a final parchment, an invitation to contribute to a journal of cultural exchange. "The Society of Oriental Studies invites you, monsieur, to document the Ottoman Ashford, a science is revealed in the mirror's history." Poirot's shoulders straightened with quiet pride. "I shall consider it with pleasure, Professor." At last, the household assembled in the gallery one final time. The mirror stood unadorned, an emblem of transparency and trust. Lady Ashford gestured to a small easel bearing a framed copy of Rosalind's codicil, rendered in graceful calligraphy beneath the seal of the Ashford crest. "Friends," Lady Ashford began, her voice steady with emotion, "we have lived through shadows and light. This mirror taught us that beneath every surface lies a truth that, when faced, binds us together rather than tears us apart. Let us honor that lesson always." Applause filled the hall, but it was a gentle, reverent sound, less of fanfare than a collective breath of gratitude. Each member of the household shared a knowing glance, aware of how deeply their lives had shifted since the mirror first revealed its enigma. Poirot stood apart, observing their unity with tender satisfaction. He crossed the gallery and placed the silver medallion beside Rosalind's sealed compartment, as if returning his gift to its true home. Then, stepping back, he released a final nod to Lady Ashford and Edith. "Mes amis," he said softly, "this case has taught me that the threads which bind us are woven from honesty, loyalty, and compassion. May those threads endure through every storm." Without another word, he turned toward the staircase. Lady Ashford called after him, "Will you not stay for tea, Monsieur Poirot?" He paused on the bottom step, his silhouette framed by the lamplit hall. With a gentle smile he replied, "Alas, obligations beckon elsewhere, but know that Mirfield's mirror and its reflections of the human heart will remain forever dear to me." And so, with measured grace, Hercule Poirot departed Mirfield Manor, leaving behind a tapestry woven of shared truths and renewed hope. The household watched in respectful silence until he was out of sight, then turned together to face the mirror, its surface clear, its legacy secure, and its reflections forever bound by the threads that held them. Chapter 18. The Final Reflection. A crisp winter sunlight filtered through the lofty gallery windows on Mirfield Manor's 18th morning, illuminating every dust mote that danced in the still air. Outside, the rose arbor branches were bare, their winter bareness a testament to season the passing. Yet inside, the gallery thrummed with the quiet contentment of a home wholly restored. This day marked not only the closing of Rosalind's legacy exhibition in Bath, but also the moment when Mirfield would settle forever into the peace hard-won through trials, secrets, and ultimately forgiveness. Hercule Poirot stood before the mirror for one last time. Its surface was flawless, its gilt frame unblemished. Behind it lay the hidden trove of documents, a codicil, a guardian's vow, the original Ottoman dedication, each now locked securely within its secret recess. He observed his own reflection with a thoughtful smile, fingertips lightly brushing the glass. Here, he mused inwardly, was a testament to the human heart's resilience. How something as inanimate as a mirror could catalyze revelation, contrition, and unity. Lady Beatrice Ashford entered, her winter cloak trailing softly across the parquet floor. In her arms she carried 2 steaming cups of spiced tea. She offered one to Poirot. "I thought we might share a final moment here before the manor returns to its gentle routine," she said, voice warm. He accepted the cup with a nod of gratitude. "Madame, this house has become a symbol of hope, proof that shadows, once illuminated by truth, dissolve into understanding." He raised the cup in salute. "To Mirfield's new chapter." They drank in silence, savouring the spice's warmth. Then Lady Ashford set her cup aside and placed a gentle hand on the mirror's frame. "I have invited the household to join us here in a moment. I wish to speak to you first, monsieur, to thank you once more for your guidance and for seeing beyond mere glass." Her eyes glistened with sincerity. "You taught me that reflection, whether honest or concealed, always points us back to ourselves." Poirot inclined his head modestly. "Madame, my role was but the catalyst. The courage to face truth and to forgive sprang from your heart, and from Edith's. Their example has been the true mirror to your family's soul." As if on cue, Edith Cartwright entered, carrying a small wooden chest bound in deep blue velvet. She approached with measured reverence, setting the chest at the foot of the mirror. Lady Ashford smiled at her. "Edith, would you do us the honour of placing the final mementos inside?" Edith knelt and unfastened the chest's silver clasp, revealing the original crystallized camellia petal and a single page from Rosalind's diary, the final sentiment she had written before her hidden codicil. "Though life may conceal its truths as shadows hide the dawn, when hearts stand steadfast in loyalty and love, every reflection finds its way back to light." With gentle care, Edith placed the diary page and the camellia into the chest, alongside the medallion Poirot had received and now offered back. She closed the lid and turned to Lady Ashford and Poirot. "These were gifts to us, gifts of insight and remembrance. May they remain here, within this frame of history and hope." Lady Ashford laid a hand upon the wooden chest. "Let these final tokens rest within the mirror's embrace, a symbol that even when we depart from this world, our reflections, our legacies, linger in the hearts we touch." At that moment the rest of the household filed into the gallery. Mr. Craven with a silver tray of morning pastries, Mrs. Dawkins carrying fresh flowers, Roland Ashford flanked by Professor Langdon. Each paused respectfully before the mirror. Lady Ashford gestured for them all to gather. "Friends," she began, voice steady and clear, "we stand before an ordinary object transformed by extraordinary truth. This mirror once divided us, divided sisters, tested loyalties, but through compassion and courage we reclaimed not just an heirloom, but our shared humanity." She paused, looking each face in turn. "Today, we close this chapter of sorrow and secret. Let us step forward together, guided by the lessons we have learned." Edith joined her, placing a hand on Lady Ashford's shoulder. "Our bond, forged in adversity, will continue to grow in trust and kindness." Poirot watched, his heart full, as Lady Ashford turned the key in the small lock, sliding open the secret panel. Together they lifted the wooden chest and set it inside the hidden cavity. With a soft click, the panel sealed once more. Psst! Mirrored surface uninterrupted, reflected only the unified faces of those who had braved its enigma. In the hush that followed, Poirot spoke, his voice gentle yet resonant. "Mes amis, in every reflection lies a story. May the story of Mirfield's mirror inspire all who behold it to seek the light of truth, and to mirror it back with love." The household bowed their heads, some with tears glistening, others with quiet resolve. Lady Ashford and Edith shared a tearful embrace, the bonds between them stronger than ever. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, they left the gallery to resume their duties, carrying forward the unity that had been so painfully won. Poirot lingered a moment longer before stepping into the corridor. He paused at the doorway, casting one last glance at the mirror's gleaming surface. In its unbroken reflection, he saw not just himself, but the spirit of a family restored. With a final nod, Poirot turned and walked away, his silhouette receding into the manor's corridors, a detective ever ready to seek truth wherever shadows lingered, yet forever shaped by the enduring lesson of Mirfield Manor, that the most profound reflections are those found within the human heart.